YouTube? What is up? Radar for Rasslin here. Anthony from Radar for Rasslin. We're on reviewing what just transpired on Elimination Chamber 2021. Really interesting night how this whole thing turned out. Kind of in shock as to the ending and how this show ended. It's pretty nuts how this show ended. But we'll go from top to bottom on this entire thing and how we're gonna work this out. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, this is one hell of a finish to this pay-per-view, and it's kind of nuts. But we'll get over it. We'll go over the whole thing from start to finish, and we'll figure out what's gonna happen next after this crazy ass night on Elimination Chamber. So let's get into it. I got a guest with me. We got Chris Wrestling Reviews on YouTube. He's gonna jump in here with me right now, and I'm gonna add him in here now. We're gonna talk and go over this entire night, whatever transpired here. We're gonna go over it. So let's get into it. I'm gonna bring him in here. Hey Chris, what's going on?
Yo, what up?
What's going on, man? How are you?
I am good. Just thinking about how this chamber went and all that good stuff. And to see, from where it started with the pre-show, and then, Keith Lee not being able to compete, which I would like to see Keith Lee kind of compete tonight, but I don't know what's the story behind it.
Yeah, so word is that Keith Lee is out due to injury. That's according to them. I don't know how much, really that is true and how much isn't, but they had the fatal four-way in the pre-show to see who was going to face, who's going to take his spot in this match. And it's interesting because they had the guys in it were Ricochet, Mustafa Ali, John Morrison, and Elias. And the guy they chose to win that match was John Morrison, which I thought was surprising. I kind of thought we could have went with Mustafa Ali or Ricochet in this segment, but they didn't. So that's who got into the match. But let's start through, and we'll go through the whole thing. And the match first started off with the Elimination Chamber for SmackDown to see who would face Roman Reigns in the later on. Well, we thought it was going to be later on, but it wasn't. You had Cesaro, Daniel Bryan, Jey Uso, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, King Corbin in there. Cesaro, Daniel Bryan start the match off. I thought this was a really good match, but in the end, it felt completely wasted. King Corbin was the first guy eliminated. Then Sami Zayn. Then we had Kevin Owens surprisingly get eliminated in this match early. He wasn't one of the final guys. We had Jey Uso. Then we had Cesaro get eliminated. It was Jey Uso and Daniel Bryan at the end of this, and it was interesting because I was thinking they were going to go with Jey Uso, but they ended up going with Daniel Bryan, which was pretty interesting. He ends up getting the win here, Daniel Bryan does. And you see from that picture there, he pins Jey Uso in the middle of the ring, and we thought that the match was going to be over there, and then the main event would be Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns, but that was not the case. The chamber raises up. Here comes Roman Reigns, and they would go on to have their match. And it wasn't much of a match. It started off with Reigns going for the spear. It would be reversed into a crossface. The yes lock by Daniel Bryan. But Reigns powerful enough to reverse it, drops him with the powerbomb, puts him in the guillotine. That'll be the end of the match there. So I think personally, I thought the chamber match was really good, but in the end, it felt wasted. What about you?
Yeah, it really was, because I mean, why have Roman to come out there and and waste like 3 minutes of TV time just to beat down Daniel Bryan, and then for them to have to pick Daniel Bryan, I think it should have been. I was thinking it was going to be Cesaro. In my prediction video on my channel, I was thinking it was going to be Cesaro, but then again, outcome would be Daniel Bryan. And then what if it was Jey Uso? Fighting Roman Reigns once again, and seeing how that outcome would be. And then after then we seen Edge spear Reigns and point at the WrestleMania sign and saying he want him at WrestleMania. But we're just gonna see what matches possibly may be for Fastlane next month, on March 21st.
Yeah, it's interesting how they made that work. It's just felt completely wasted. It was all about Cesaro in the end about this. I think they just built Cesaro, but for what reason, I don't know, because he's not going to face Reigns at WrestleMania. Because what happened was that as Reigns is celebrating after he defeats Daniel Bryan, you have Edge hit the ring, hit the spear, and then stand over the top of him just like this. pretty much proclaiming that he's going to face Reigns at WrestleMania. They would announce it later on that it's official Reigns Edge at WrestleMania. We knew it was going to happen just the way that Reigns was acting, that was going to be the case, right? He was going to be in it. He was going to take the shot against Reigns. But it just felt like you built Cesaro up in this Elimination Chamber for really no reason, to be honest with you, because who knows what he's going to do? Maybe he does like an IC title thing after this. But for the most part, it's just, I felt completely wasted. A tremendous match to be wasted just for Reigns to come in directly after the match is over, beat the guy who won in Daniel Bryan, and then it's all about Edge and Reigns after that. So this match kind of served no purpose in the end.
Yeah, I honestly think WWE kind of ran out ideas toward the end of who they wanted to actually win. So, it kind of confused me, when I seen Cesaro got pinned. I'm like, well, we only got Jey Uso left and Daniel Bryan. And I'm like, this is gonna be it's gonna be kind of weird. Then end up Daniel Bryan winning. So yeah.
It felt pointless in the end. I think in the end it hurt everybody involved, and it wasn't that
I looked away.
What was that?
I honestly looked away. As soon as when I think Cesaro got pinned, I looked away. Yeah. I just said, well, let me just catch up on jot down my notes. So
yeah, no, it was weird. I just felt like Cesaro should have been the guy, even if you're gonna do I guess they didn't want Cesaro to lose like that at the end. So they just pick a guy like Daniel Bryan who's willing to do the job for Reigns in that type of way. But it was interesting. I thought the match was it was such a good chamber match, but it was wasted in the end. And Edge, Roman, we all knew it was gonna happen. So that's what we're gonna get at WrestleMania. Should be interesting how they plays that forward, and we'll see what happens with Cesaro, Daniel Bryan. Do they get into the IC title picture? Who takes on Seth Rollins? Will be Cesaro, will be Daniel Bryan. I got a lot of things they can go with. But let's jump over to the next match, which is the triple threat for the United States Championship. Bobby Lashley, the champion, Riddle, and John Morrison, who won the Fatal 4-Way early in the night. Now he's in this match in the chat. Michael, yeah, that's true. He's going to go to Mania. Eric, what's up? Yeah, so that's the way this is going to play out. Morrison's in the match, and it's pretty much Lashley just dominating both guys throughout the entire match. Even if they're trying to team up on him 2-on-1, they can't get him down. It's just building Lashley as a monster. Obviously, when you see what happens later on in the night, you know why they did this. But they would continue to build him as a monster the entire way through. You had Miz and Morrison Morrison and Riddle doing some big splashes on the outside to get Bobby Lashley out of the match for a little bit. But in the end, surprising to me, not surprising anymore because of what happened at the end of the night, but surprising at the time, Matt Riddle is your new United States champion. I didn't think they were going to do it. I think they may have done it differently if Keith Lee was in this match. I think Keith Lee was like the guy who was going to win the match in the end, but since they didn't have Keith Lee, is the reason why they picked Riddle, because I felt like Riddle was just the fall guy the entire time. And it was interesting the way this played out, but in the end, you know why it did play out the way it did. But I thought it was, it was a solid little match. It's just all about Lashley.
Man, in my opinion on that match, I kind of wanted to see John Morrison win. I don't know why WWE is always downing John Morrison. John Morrison is a great competitor. We see him, before years and years ago, as ECW world champion. Then he was in other promotions, he was world champion there. But why, when he comes back to WWE and be like on Raw or SmackDown, the company wants to down him for whatever reason. I don't understand. You got Miz on top, but why not have John Morrison on top?
Yeah, it's interesting. Eric in the chat, please God, I don't ask you for much, but please don't let Bad Bunny beat the Miz and become WWE champion.
Man.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the whole thing. All right, we're gonna get to that later, but let's talk about it just real quick. Miz, obviously, is champion. It's in the title. You saw the event. I think he's going to just swap it back to probably Bobby Lashley or Drew McIntyre at Fastlane, and then you'll have Bad Bunny, Priest versus Miz and Morrison at WrestleMania. I think that's the way they'll play it. But back to the match that we were just talking about. Yeah, it's weird. They used the crutch, MVP's crutch in the match, and that was kind of the way that Riddle was able to hit the Bo Derek on Morrison and get the win there. But we'll see. I don't know how this leads to WrestleMania with Riddle, how far they can take this to WrestleMania. With Riddle, who's going to face at WrestleMania? Does he face Morrison? Is it going to be a multi-man match? It's interesting because there's not a lot of contenders for this title after you see Lashley throwing himself into the title picture at the end of the show. So it'll be interesting how that works.
I would love to see Lashley, in the title picture after the past 3 weeks. Lashley has been proving himself to be a world, as a world champion material. And if, like, let's say Roman Reigns, retains the title at WrestleMania,
Yeah.
and then Bobby Lashley, of course, has the title, those two superstars right there, they will dominate, both, make both of the shows grow, grow more and more each week, especially Raw. 'Cause Raw really needs some ratings,
Yeah,
because
big time.
SmackDown has been bidding big time.
Yeah, it has. And I mean, this might help it with, the whole big swerve at the end and Bobby Lashley being involved now in the title picture. But when it comes to the U.S. title, it'll be interesting to see how they move this forward. Will Morrison get away from Miz and focus on Riddle in the U.S. Championship going into Mania? I think Mania U.S. Championship match is gonna be like a multi-man match, most likely, like a bunch of guys in a match, like a fatal 4-way or something like that. I think they're gonna go with that.
Battle Royal.
Or yeah, something like that. Some weird like multi-man match, fatal 4-way ladder match, 6-man ladder match, something like that to kind of spice things up. I don't know how Riddle's gonna be as a United States champion. His promos are pretty ridiculous nowadays on Monday Night Raw. They're just corny and bad comedy. So we'll see how this ends up working out. But Matt Riddle, your new United States champion, it was a solid little match. I mean, I give the match a B. I'd give the first chamber match like an A, and this match a B. Next thing on the show is probably the worst part of the show, and it was Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus Sasha. Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair for the tag titles. Match that was set up on SmackDown on Friday, so it was a late addition to the show, and obviously it made the show because of the fact that Lacey Evans, Asuka wasn't on the show anymore. So this has a lot to do with Reginald. He's getting involved in Sasha Banks. He seems to have a crush on her, and he's really getting involved in the storyline between Banks and Belair, and now Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. He would be the cost of this match. Him coming out would cost the match for Shayna, Nia Jax. I'm sorry, Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. And he would come out, give Sasha Banks the bottle of champagne. She didn't want to use it. That would cause a distraction for Jax to hit Banks with the finisher, and retain. And I don't know where this is going. I mean, in the end, it's going to be Bianca versus Sasha. But I thought this match was just terrible. It was like all over the place. It felt a lot of like missteps, and it felt like the chemistry was just not there. And Nia Jax to me is just not that great in the ring. Just the way she moves around, and she does a lot of stuff that looks bad. It doesn't look clean, and I just think it hurts all the matches she's in. I think she needs to sharpen all that stuff up, and I thought it was just terrible in the end. And I don't know what's gonna happen with Reginald, Carmella, and Sasha. It's weird.
She's Nia Jax, man. I've been having a problem with Nia Jax ever since like she was fighting Lana, and she's basically a risk to the company because I mean, how are you going to put this lady through a table like freaking? No matter if it's a fake table, real table, whatever you want to call it, you keep putting this lady through the table 10 times. I believe that was the correct
it was like
number.
9. I think it was 9. Yeah.
Oh, at 9, yeah.
Yeah.
But she's like a risk, and I don't see how WWE would let her go along with this. But it was a reported, a news report that that Nia Jax was going to be losing the tag titles at one point in time when they did lose them, and have Nia Jax on commentary. But I guess it didn't happen, and WWE decided to keep them as Raw Tag Team Champions after they won it back.
Yeah, and I just think if she wasn't related to The Rock, she probably wouldn't be in the spot that she's in. I mean, she's obviously big, she's an imposing figure, but it's just the stuff she does in the ring doesn't really look all that great. And she's had some botches that have hurt people or look like they've hurt people in the past. But I thought this match was just all over the place. It was not good, and I think it hurt a little bit Belair and Banks going forward into their match at WrestleMania, which she technically hasn't made her decision. But we'll have to wait until SmackDown maybe to find that out. After Edge made his decision, she's the only one left to make her decision for this match. But yeah, that's the way that match ended. Still tag team champions, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, in the worst match of the night by far. Now let's get to the most interesting thing.
I give it a 1.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I'll probably give this one like a D. But it was not good. And I don't know what's going on with Reginald. We see what happens with Reginald going forward, but I just was not a fan of any of this. But next thing on the show was the Raw Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship. it was interesting, this matchup, because of some stuff that happened here. You had what do you call it? Them start the match off, and then there was an interesting spot where you have Randy Orton in the ring, and he's taking on Kofi Kingston, and then Kofi Kingston pins him, and he's out. And I was thinking that if Orton was to be eliminated in that way, it was interesting. I thought it would be more the Fiend that would cost him to be eliminated. There was no sighting of the Fiend, Alexa Bliss in this entire thing. So that was weird as to why they eliminated him like that. He didn't have much of an impact on in the match, and he just got eliminated without the Fiend being around. And that was really weird. The match was started off by Orton and Jeff Hardy, and the third guy in was Drew McIntyre, then it was Kofi Kingston. I felt like this match, they were running out of time, so like the intervals between guys coming out was shorter than the first Elimination Chamber match. I felt like the first Elimination Chamber, the intervals were longer between guys coming out. But it was just weird the way Orton got eliminated like that by Kofi Kingston really quickly, and no Fiend. I just thought that was weird. And then you have a lot more back and forth. And then you end up having one of the weirdest parts of this match was when Omos broke open AJ Styles pod. This is after Orton gets eliminated. He attacks both guys in the ring, leaves him laying. He's obviously upset. He's leaving. You have almost break the pod for this guy to come out, and he comes around and through the front entrance of the Elimination Chamber, and it really led to nothing because he didn't pin anybody with it and almost got ejected. So I thought it was a wasted spot there. You have the interesting decision to have Sheamus get eliminated and not be the last person in there with Drew McIntyre. Ended up being Drew and AJ Styles in the ring towards the end, and then you have Drew defeating AJ with a Claymore in the air, knocking AJ as he was hitting the phenomenal forearm, and then he would get the win and he would retain. And that's like the biggest thing that happened in the match. And then I guess get to the chat. Michael says Bad Bunny main eventing WrestleMania. God, I hope not. That'd be bad. Yeah, he's gonna have one of the biggest matches, but he's not gonna main event. We have Juggernaut saying the way AJ entered the match was weird. It was totally strange. Juggernaut, welcome to the stream. Thanks for commenting. It was weird. Yeah, it made no sense because he didn't gain anything from it. Right? He breaks open the chamber almost. He comes around, goes to the front entrance, doesn't pin anybody, and almost gets thrown out of ringside. And the match continues from there on. But I thought you built Sheamus the way you did the past few weeks, and then he's not the last guy in there with Drew McIntyre. It's AJ Styles, and then that's the end of the match right there. Eric in the chat made the chamber look cheap. I guess, yeah. That thing's gimmick.
It so really was.
Yeah, I guess that's gimmick, so almost could just rip it off like super easy. You know how they set that up? The magic of WWE does, the way they work that kind of stuff. But after this, you would have Drew McIntyre, obviously, in the ring, beaten up. And here comes Bobby Lashley attacking Drew McIntyre, ragdolling him, throwing him around, hitting him, putting him in the hurt lock and tossing him. And then you think like that's the end at that point. Like Bobby Lashley staking his claim that he was coming after the WWE Championship. But then the music hits, the Miz's music hits. He comes out, cashes in Money in the Bank, and this picture on the screen is the way the show ended. Miz is your new WWE champion. We didn't think it was going to happen with the way he's been booked, him losing the briefcase, getting it back, being treated like a joke on the show nonstop. And this is what we get. Miz is the WWE champion. Let that picture sink in and be ingrained in your brains, because tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw, you're going to see this man come out with this belt and gloat and talk as much trash as possible. Lewis, the Miz, the champion. Yeah, I mean, if you're excited about it, you're excited about Lewis. I don't know. The booking of the Miz has been just absolute garbage. The way they've booked him, and this is just the way it is. I just think I think they're gonna do the swap, like I said before, at Fastlane. Like I think Miz wins it here, Miz drops it at Fastlane, and do Lashley versus McIntyre Mania, because Miz still has the beef with Bad Bunny. I'm assuming Bad Bunny will probably interfere and cost him the title. See, Juggernaut says triple threat match at Fastlane. Lastly, Drew, you can see that too. Yeah, the triple threat, and then I think Bad Bunny probably cost it for the Miz, and that's how they just go all the way in with the Bad Bunny, Priest versus Miz and Morrison. Lewis, Miz versus Cena again. I mean, I hope not. Jesus Christ, I hope that doesn't happen again. But I thought the chamber match was good. It was it was a good match. I thought there was like some weird spots in it. Like I said, Randy's spot was weird. No Fiend. The AJ spot was weird. And I give it like a B, like a solid B this match, mainly because the shock and the ending of it all at the end. What you think? Yeah.
Yeah, because what I think about the whole Raw Elimination Chamber match it was. I mean, it was steady for a good little bit, but seeing Kofi, pin Randy Orton, I would have thought the Fiend would have come from under the ring like Kane
Yeah.
normally do, and and then the lights go out, all that good stuff, and then with Kofi, I thought probably the Retribution would have attacked him, because they still have some beef going on, and then the way like we were talking about AJ Styles, the way how he got in with almost, breaking open the thing. I'm like, what kind of mess is this? And then so I'm up here like, man, what is WWE doing? But also, if you didn't notice, WWE has changed the Elimination Chamber structure. It's not like it used to be
Yep.
back years ago with the loose chains. Where remember that time when Titus O'Neil head was through the chains that time, and
Hmm.
then like around like on the inside of it, they got they got matting down now. They used to just have it all still way around. But I guess since WWE wants to keep their wrestlers safe and keep them going, they decided to put some padding on the outside of the steel structure.
Yeah, I agree with you that the fact that he didn't show up, it was the Fiends should have showed up in that. I kind of hope, like, I kind of wish he would have came through the bottom of the pod and pulled Orton out, or came out through that padding part you were talking about and having it come through, but it just wasn't there. Juggernaut says it's 2011 all over again. Yeah, Mrs. Champion, just like in 2011. At least he's not taking the spot from CM Punk like he did in 2011.
I wonder where's the angry girl at.
Oh yeah, they got to show her how much she has to show up, like on the the Thunderdome screen. Eric, with triple threat, only way the most protected man in WWE is gonna lose Bobby Lashley. Yeah, I would say. I mean, I guess it's just like I figure Fastlane they're gonna end up doing like either a multi-man triple threat or just Bobby Lashley versus the Miz, and then that's how they swap the title. But I don't think the Miz is gonna go into WrestleMania as champion, or versus the Fiend from Lewis. Yeah, that's definitely gonna happen. We just got to see when they're gonna set that up. If they're going to do it tomorrow night, I think they should have set it up tonight, but maybe it was just too much for them to do with the big ending they had planned towards the end, with the Miz coming out and becoming champion. Just for one last time, let me just put this back on the screen so you guys can just rub it in that Miz is champion once again. Something we didn't think we were going to see. We thought he was going to cash in and lose. He just seemed like the type of guy at this moment that was going to happen. But whether you hate him or love him, the way he's been booked is terrible recently, but he's now WWE champion, and there's not really much anybody can do about it. Like I said, I don't think he's going to make it to Mania as champion. I think now the cards are laid out there that it's going to be Lashley versus McIntyre at WrestleMania for WWE Championship. Probably the flip will happen at Fastlane, like I said. But Fastlane's the first, it's going to be the first pay-per-view that's going to be on both Peacock and Network. And then WrestleMania has to be on Peacock. So everybody's got to sign up to Peacock. If it doesn't transfer over immediately, you got to do it yourself. You got to remember to sign up to that. You're not going to be able to watch the pay-per-views. But yeah, I just think both chamber matches in the end, I thought both chamber matches were good. In terms of the stuff they did in the ring, it was very brutal, very physical, both chamber matches. A couple odd spots here and there, like the choice of having Daniel Bryan win and then having him get beat so quickly was kind of interesting. It felt like the match was just completely wasted and didn't need to happen. They could have gave it to maybe the Raw women to have a chamber match or something like that. They could have done that instead.
You know what I'm thinking though? I'm still thinking, why has Asuka not defended her title minus that Alexa Bliss thing, because that wasn't nothing on Raw. She hasn't defended her title since Survivor Series, actually, you guys, because why is she still holding the title? Is WWE trying to save her from going to another wrestling promotion or what? I mean, I know she's supposed to have faced Lacey Evans. They could have had possibly Peyton Royce face Asuka, since they're since Peyton Royce and Lacey Evans are tag team partners. But then again, I don't know what WWE would do, regarding with Asuka still being champion and haven't defended really since November at Survivor Series.
Well, I mean, I think the end game for that, is to either have Charlotte win it, Rhea Ripley win it, or Alexa Bliss win it. I think that might happen at Fastlane just to set up the big match at WrestleMania. I don't think Asuka will be in the Mania match. I think they'll just set it up at Fastlane. Juggernaut in the chat, if Otis still had Money in the Bank briefcase, he would have definitely lost. So I'm not mad about the Miz as WWE champion. He was a better choice in the end than Otis. Otis was just like it was just the time, right? He had the storyline that kind of hit with Mandy. Everybody kind of liked him at that point. And then after that, it was kind of like, it's too much of a joke. But they still ended up making the Miz a joke anyways in the end. So we'll see what happens. Lewis, in which rivalry do you think Rollins will join WrestleMania? I think he's going to do something with Cesaro, Daniel Bryan. Because remember, he showed up when he made his return to SmackDown 2 weeks ago. He had the promo in the ring. Everybody left the ringside that was out there except Cesaro. Then he beat up Cesaro, and Daniel Bryan came out to make the save. So it could be a Cesaro Rollins or Rollins Daniel Bryan in the end for WrestleMania. That's I think Rollins, because remember, Rollins is just coming back from Survivor after his long break from Survivor Series. So they got to bring him into something like a solid little match to have him at WrestleMania. He's not going to be anything big or anything like that. But remember, Cesaro can be thrown into the IC title picture because he's had a big run. But maybe the big run is just to have him viable to beat Rollins at WrestleMania. That could be the reason as to that. But back to the chamber matches. Yeah, so Daniel Bryan was an odd choice. But I guess they just probably asked in the back who wants to lose the reins real quick after the match, and he probably raised his hand, and that was the end of that. He volunteered for that. It was just all set up for Edge, and it made the chamber feel less important. At least that one. Juggernaut in the chat, and I hate the way they booked the Money in the Bank holder being a joke and losing every match. Yeah, when it came to the Miz, I mean that's what they did with him. They just they used him like that. Him and Morrison doing the whole rapping gimmick, the cornball stuff, the Miz TV stuff. It was all corny. I didn't like any of it. He was a joke from day one, and none of it came off well. I thought it was just a waste of time, and the fact that he ended up cashing this thing in successfully, I think is a shock in and of itself. But like I said, I don't think he's going to hold on to it long. And the Raw chamber match was a solid match, weird spots like we said. I think no Fiend, and the fact that Kofi went in there with nobody fighting him off in terms of retribution, in terms of Mustafa Ali. Nobody had an issue with him being in the match, and like that storyline seems to have been dropped, I guess. Maybe they'll pick it back up on tomorrow night between New Day and Retribution, but I thought that was a disaster as well. It's just little things like that, continuity issues that WWE forgets about sometimes, and it hurts them in the end. But it was still a solid show. I think WWE has been on a good roll of just solid pay-per-views at least recently, and some of it they've all been pretty good. And this one it's up there. It's like in the middle of the pack. Some cool stuff, but for the most part, some odd stuff as well. So that's a review for you guys today. Remember to follow me if you're not subscribed to my channel. Subscribe to my channel, Chris Wrestling Views. Follow his channel as well. Check out the stuff he's doing out there. Chris, I appreciate you for coming on and doing this live stream review with me. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yep, tomorrow night on Raw.